ethnic, you know, you mentioned we're more America has always been a multi-ethnic society, and every group that has come outside of the Anglo-Saxons, every group that has come has had, in a sense, to duke it out on the street. And the Irish Americans, When the Irish Became White, is a very interesting book about how difficult it was for Irish Americans. Daniel O'Connell argued to the Irish American leadership that they should ally with the African Americans in the United States because they were fighting a common enemy, which was the Anglo-Saxon. The Anglo-Saxon leadership began to integrate the Irish into and make them police, to start policing the African American community. So divide and conquer has always been a strategy amongst leadership in the United States. But the millennials, and I think we should be very hopeful about this, the millennials are far less absorbed in the race issue. And I think that as the dinosaurs and the supremacists die off, and I think they will die off, I think we're going to see a very different world. It's going to celebrate diversity more than denigrate it.
So I would argue.
Well, I'm gonna be hopeful about it. Just from my own experience teaching young people for over 30 years of many, many different cultural and ethnic backgrounds, including I worked as a prison imam with entirely African American. So I'm very familiar with the struggles. This has been a very, very long road, and we're far from where we should be. I totally agree. And the reasons for it are extremely complex and cannot be simply reduced to race. There are many, many variables in the issue, and it's a very complex issue, and it's difficult even for people outside of that to speak about it. But I am hopeful from what I'm seeing. I mean, I'm in California. Pat Buchanan said it's the Quebec of America, right? So in some ways, we're the weirdest people in the world. But I think California is a place really where, I mean, Berkeley's a good example, but Berkeley is probably the most progressive university in the United States, and yet still about 80% of the professors there are white.
That's right.
So it's undeniable that we do have a problem.
That's right.
Can I try to connect these dots maybe?
Sure.
I think that there is something that millennials do have in common, research shows, and it's a search for meaning. It's amazing that the number one thing, if you ask millennials, I don't want a job, I want a meaningful job. Now, they did not invent man's search for meaning. What they've invented is the insistence on getting meaning at work and working at companies that create meaning. And in that way, millennials are not just a demographic, an age group, they're also a psychographic. There are others who want to join millennials in saying we need to build an economy where there's meaningful work. And the other thing that unites millennials is ethics. Over 60% would take a pay cut if they could fire their current boss, and over 40% would rather work for a robot. So millennials, and because
that's ethics.
Well,
that's just
well, it's because they don't like the kind of ethics they're getting. But
a robot, good or bad.
Good or bad. But in many ways, what millennials are saying, because they have mortgages, they're getting married, they're in that great age group, they're participating in the economy, but they're saying we want to work for good companies, we want to work for institutions that make a difference. And right behind the millennials are the teenagers. I've been tracking them. There's Julie Boehm, who got Coca-Cola to remove carcinogens. There's Sarah Kavanaugh that got DC Comics to have more pictures of female heroines. You're seeing teenagers, one after another, lean into the world as social activists and become self-made leaders overnight. And to me, they're a source of hope. There's a generation that is changing the world through values.
So I think that